Yeah.
Ezras Hashem. Today's daf is daf Nun Ches, and we will begin from daf Nun Tes Nun Zayin Amid Beis, and we're going to start from two lines from the bottom. Lema Hakofos Kol Harosh Tanoi. I just want to point out, it's just a fascinating Gemara to remember that Rav Huna made a comment that if you take off the payas from your small child, hamakif is a cotton, the barber is chayiv. It's kedai to remember this, that Rav Ada bar Ahaba questioned Rav Huna on him. He says, I see your sons walking without payas. I assume that you weren't the barber that shaved off your kids' payas. So he said, no, my wife did it, chayva. So, it's very difficult to understand that Rav Huna didn't give payas for his son. But some want to say that was the style then, and for a kid it was okay. That's what it was. Rashi, the Mefarish, which is not really Rashi here, he says it's possible that kedei lahavroisam la'achar hachoili. I just want to point that out. And if I don't point it out yesterday, that it was because they were sick. So he had them cut their payas, and that was it. Anyway, it was his wife who did it anyway. That was the discussion yesterday. So let's begin. Here we go. The pasuk says now we're going to discuss about cutting off the payas. So the pasuk says over here, loisakifu pa'as roishchem. It's on the screen here, that you're now allowed to make a circle, like you see, you make a circle, cut off the payas, and just keep a crown of hair on your head, like the machshemam, the Nazis used to do. You cut the hair and make it like a crown, leave the hair on the top. That's what the Torah says. What happens if somebody just shaves his hair off? Does he get that aveira? So the Gemara wants over here that if cutting the hair off of your head completely is a machlekes tanoim. Okay, hold on. All right. Hi, Louis. We just began. So we're discussing over here what happens if somebody cuts his entire head off, not his entire hair of his head off at one shot, including the payas. Does he get the aveira? Is the Torah just saying don't cut the payas and leave the top, or the Torah doesn't care? Even if you cut all the hair on your head, you get the aveira of taking off the payas. So the Gemara is going to suggest that it's a machlekes tanoim, because the Torah says by a mitzayra, on the day of this, when he finishes in the Naziris, he should take a haircut. As kol sa'ar, he should razor blade his entire hair. And a mitzayra actually razor blades not only his hair on his head, but he also his entire, let's say, all his hair on his body, even his feet or whatever. So then the Torah says, as roishay, take off the hair of your head. So why does the Torah specifically say roishay as a konai? Take off the hair of your head and take off the hair of your beard. It says take off all your hair, razor blade all your hair. So why does the Torah say your head and beard? So that one Mandi Amma said, as Roisha is teaching you that you would think that if a regular Jew was a Mitzayra, he should not cut the payas off his head. And he should cut off every other hair, but not the payas on his head. So it's from here you see that the Torah tells you, no, even him should be cutting off the payas of his head. So we see from here, first of all, the essay of the positive commandment of Mitzayra cutting his hair will override the negative commandment of taking off the payas. But the fact that the Mitzayra is taking off all his hair at one shot will still be in the violation of taking off the payas. So that's what one Mandi Amar learns from this Roshai, to teach me that any Jew is not allowed to cut his payas off. Any Mitzayra is permitted to cut his payas off. It's not Mitzayra, that would be Asar. So that would be that opinion of the Mandi Amar. But according to the other opinion we'll learn from Roshai is not. Roshai teaches you a special type of Mitzayra should cut his hair of his head off. Every other Jew has no problem when he's a Mitzayra to cut his hair off, because he's not in violation of the cutting off the payas, because he's cutting off all his hair. But a Nazir who's a Mitzayra, So a Nazir is not allowed to cut off any hair of his head, not just the payas. He's not allowed to cut off even the one string of his head. And if he's a Mitzvah, the Torah is telling you he should cut his hair off as a Mitzvah. And that teaches you that the essay of Mitzvah, the positive commandment of taking a haircut, overrides the negative and positive commandment of being a Nazir. Okay, of being a Nazir. An essay and a loisa say of being a Nazir that they're supposed to take their hair off. So from the fact that he said that the pasuk of Rosh is talking about a Nazir signifies that he holds that only by a Nazir there's a possible sin cutting off the hair, because a Nazir is not allowed to cut off any hair. But a regular Jew, once he's cutting off all his hair, he's not violating the sin of loisa kippur. Let's see this all inside, and it's all going to make sense. Lema, let us say, we're up to 3 lines from the bottom, Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Lema, let us say, Lahakofes kol harosh tanoi. If someone takes off all the hair of his head and takes off the payas as well, did he violate the law of loisa kippur, of loisa kippur pa'as roishchem? So the Gemara says tanoi. This is a fabulous machlekes tanoim. The Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. This is Tana number 1, Brisa number 1. Roishai. Why does it say in the Torah that a Nazir, a Mitzvah, is supposed to cut off all his hair on his head? Well, he tells me, take off all your hair on your body. So certainly it includes the hair that's on your head. Ma Talmud Loimet. Why does it say Roishai specifically? Because he learns, Lefisha Ne'amar, Loisa Kifu Pa'as Roishchem. It says every Jew is not allowed to cut off his payas. We go up to Nunches Aleph, Yochel, I would have thought, Af Mitzvah came, that even a Mitzvah is not supposed to cut off his payas. Talmud Loima, so the pasuk says Roishai, that the essay of Mitzvah overrides the loisa say of loisa kippur. So we see, according to this Tana, the first Tana holds that even though you're cutting off all the hair of your head, and that's what a Mitzvah is supposed to do, but still that would be in violation of taking off the payas. And that's why I need an extra pasuk of Roshi to tell me that is okay. The Tanya Idach, the other brisa, another brisa learns from Roshi something even more significant. He says, Roshi ma Talmud loima. What does the Torah tell you, Roshi? That you're not that you're supposed to cut the hair off your head. Because I would have thought Gabe Nazir Ta'ar lo yaval Roshi. A regular Mitzvah who is a Nazir, if the Nazir has a violation of not taking a razor blade any part of his hair on his head. He's not to touch any hair on his head. So I would have thought, and plus there's another essay, by the way, that a Nazir is supposed to grow his hair. Not only is a Nazir not supposed to take off hair, he's supposed to grow his hair. So Yochel, I would have thought, Af Nazir Mitzvah Kain, I would have thought that what? A Nazir who is a Mitzvah should also not violate his Naziris and cut his hair. Hamad Loima, Roishai, that a Mitzvah who happens to be a Nazir, he should violate his Naziris and cut his hair off. So therefore, my love, let us say it's simple. Tanoi, it's a machlekes tanoim. Leman di'ama mi Nazir, the second brisa that said that Rosh is talking about a Nazir Mitzvah. So then, kasava hakofas kol roish loy shema hakafa. By taking off all the hair of your head, that's not called in violation of taking off the payas, because you're taking off all the hair. So therefore, any Jew that's a Mitzvah is not in violation when he follows through on taking off all the hair on his head, because he's taking off all the hair on his head, he's not in violation of that loisei say. So then I need Roshi to teach me something else. When does the pasuk come to teach you? The mitches loisei say the essay. It's specifically talking about a Nazir who is a Mitzvah, and a Nazir is not allowed to take off any hair on his head. So when he's a Mitzvah, he is supposed to violate his Naziris, because we're going to say the essay of Mitzvah will tell you to override the lois essay of a Nazir and the essay of a Nazir of growing hair. The Idach, but the first Tana, Savar, who holds that from Rosh Hashanah teaches you every Jew should be cutting their hair as a Mitzvah. Why does the Torah have to tell you every Jew is allowed to? Because he would be in violation of Leisakifu Pas Roishchem had it not been for the pasuk. So hakafas kol harosh shma hakafa, because although you're cutting off all the hair of your head, that's still in violation of the loisakifu pas roishim of taking off your payas. So v'chi asikra, and lets the pasuk come lemitche lav gareda. That will be tell you to override that the essay of Mitzayra overrides of take the essay of Mitzayra to take a haircut overrides the lois essay of loisakifu. So what the Gemara just established is if someone shaves his entire head, did he violate the lav of loisakifu? Gemara says now it's a machlekes tanoim. So the Gemara first suggests that it's not. Amar Rava, the Gemara is going to say it's not, but we'll see. The Kuli Alma, everybody holds hakafas kol harosh loishma hakafa. Taking off all the hair of your head, that's not in violation of loisakifu. The chi asakra. So then why would I need a pasuk to tell me? In other words, why would I need the pasuk by over here by Mitzora to tell you that he should cut his payas off if he wouldn't be in violation of anything because he's cutting off all his hair? So I wouldn't need you to tell me that he has to cut off the payas of his head. So what is that? How is he going to explain that according to the first Tana? The Gemara says the chi asakra, the pasuk is teaching you going. Let's say he didn't follow direction. A mitzayra k'shehikaf ulb'soif gilea. If in case he first cut off the payas and then he cut off the rest of the hair, even the ilu. So the Torah is telling you, even the ilu galche b'chad zina. If he would take off all his hair at one shot, loy mechayev, he wouldn't get a violation. So the Torah is telling you a Mitzayra has an extra leniency that in case he didn't follow the directions in taking off all his hair, he did it in 2 steps. He first made the circle, taking off the payas, and then Rusayf Gilech, and then took off the crown of hair on his head. Nami loy mechayev, he wouldn't get a violation. And that's what the Torah is telling you. Although the Torah prefers you to do it in taking off all your hair, but if you do it in the wrong way, you wouldn't get an avera. So the Gemara says that can't be how the Torah proceeds, because that's not in the derech of the Torah. Because would the Torah just give you a leniency when you're supposed to follow directions? Rish Lakish said, "Kol mokum shatamoitzi asay v'loisasay." If you find an asay v'loisasay, normally in atu yochel kaim shneim mutav. If you can keep both of them, then you're supposed to not violate the loisasay, keep the asay, and keep the loisasay. Vim lav, if you're in a situation where you're forced to violate the loisasay, for example, a baby is born and he has a leprosy on his bris milah. So the Torah tells you, give him a bris milah and cut off the leprosy, the tzaras. Even though cutting off tzaras is a lav, you can't keep both. Either you do one or nothing. So then you do the Yavai essay, you say over there, you essay, V'yitches loisasay will override the loisasay. So therefore, in this matter, once the Torah tells you to do it properly, taking off all the hair of your head, the Torah is not going to go ahead and say that if you didn't follow directions, then you won't get the lav. Since there's a way to do it and not get the lav, you're supposed to do it in that way where you wouldn't get the isser, which is taking off all the hair of your head. So it's impossible that everybody, that it's not called, that hakafas kol harosh, by taking off all the hair of your head, is not called hakafa. So Ella, so the Gemara goes the other direction. The Kuli Alma, everybody would agree that hakafas kol harosh shma hakafa. If you take off all the hair of your head, you get a violation of loisakifu. So now you have to answer, why did Bryson number 2 say that it's talking about a Nazir Mitzayra? Say simply that it's talking about a regular Jew who is a Mitzayra, and the Torah is teaching you that assay of Mitzayra overrides the loisasay of loisakifu. So the Gemara says that because he has another source of assay deichel loisasay, he doesn't need Rashi to tell me that the assay of Mitzayra should override the loisasay of loisakifu. He knows it on his own from a different source. So they're from another source. What's the other source? He uses the pasuk of Rashi to teach you that the essay should override even a loisaseh ve'eseh. By a nazir, lav geredim anole. How do you know on a regular case we have an essay, let's say to give a bris milah, and don't cut the tzaras, we say the essay should override the loisaseh. So where do you know that essay overrides? Let's just say that you wouldn't need Mitzvah to teach you that he could tell any Jew could take off his payers. Yalef migadilim, learn it from tzitzis. The Amr Shlakish, the pasuk says, let's bring up the pasuk. The pasuk says right over here, loisil bashatnes semer pishtim yapne. First, the Torah says, don't wear shatnes, right? Then the Torah says, gedilim tasalecha, make tzitzis. So there's a connection between tzitzis and shatnes. What's the Torah telling you? The Torah is telling you that even though you made, let's say you're wearing a linen baguette, if the four-corner garment is linen, you could make wool tzitzis as strings coming out of it, even though it normally be shatnez, but the asay of tzitzis will override the loisasay of shatnez. The Torah tells you don't put on shatnez. The Tanya is, and then the Brisa says, loisil b'shatnez al gedilim tasalecha. But even if you're wearing let's say a linen garment, you can make wool tzitzis, or the opposite. If you're wearing a wool garment, you can make linen tzitzis. So that's why, he has the source, another source of essay overrides a loisasay. Therefore, by Roshai of Matzorah, we'll teach you something more, that if a Nazir is a Matzorah, where a Nazir has a loisasay and essay, the assay of Matzorah will override the essay and loisasay of Nazir. Now the Gemara asks, Uman the nafkele meroshai, my time in loy nafkele megdilim. Perfect question. The first brisa learned that the assay of Mitzorah overrides loisakifu. Why? Because the Torah says roshai, and every Jew is permitted to take a haircut at the end of Mitzorahs. So why didn't he learn? Why do I need the Torah to tell you an extra word by Mitzorah that the assay overrides the loisa assay? Why don't you learn it from tzitzis? From the fact that the Torah allows shatnez and sitness in tzitzis is a perfect source for essay doichel loisa assay. Amalach, so he will tell you, look at the Rav Uktasa, that that matter of tzitzis is coming for something totally different, totally different, and it's not teaching you the essay is doichel loisa assay. What is it teaching you? What Ravas taught us. Let's look at the pasuk over here. The pasuk says by tzitzis, which we say every night, and I'm going to point out something to you. God said to Moshe, saying, "Dabel b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people, v'yamarta lehem, and tell them how good it is to put on tzitzis, what spiritual benefits you get from tzitzis, v'asu lehem tzitzis, and they should make for them strings, al kampe vigdehem, on the corners of their clothing. They should always put strings, l'dairasam, for generation." Then the Chumash says, "V'nosnu al tzitzis." This word al means not on top of the tzitzis, but al means with the tzitzis, okay? With the strings, you should put psil techelis, a blue string, which you'll put hakanaf also by the corner. So you notice how the Torah says kanaf twice. It already says kanaf, al kamfe v'gdehem. So this is what Rava is questioning. The Rami asked the question, Ksiv v'nosnu al tzitzis v'hakanaf min kanaf psil techelis. It says that when the Torah is telling you put the strings by the corner, maybe the Torah is teaching you that the strings have to be made out of the same material as the baguette. Fine. So let's say you're making a silk baguette, you have to put silk tzitzis. Then the Torah says, in another place in the Baran, it says semer or pishtin yachtav. It says that the tzitzis should be made either of wool or linen. So what is the Torah? What does the Torah want? Either it could be made from any material or just from wool and linen. Okay, so how do you reconcile those two psukim? Semer or pishtin, if you're making the strings out of wool or linen, poitrim bin bein b'minim ben shloi b'minim, will you yaitze the mitzvah, and it will pater. In other words, it will considered as if you fulfill the obligation, no matter what the baguette is made out of. So semer or pishtin, wool or linen, no matter what material the baguette is made out of, the garment is made out of, tzemer or pishtim is good. Sha'ar minim, but if you're making the strings out of other material, then it has to match the material of the baguette. So if you're making silk tzitzis, you have to have a silk baguette. B'minam paitrim. If the baguette is the same type, then you fulfill the obligation. Shloi b'minam, but if it's not made out of the same type, ein paitrim, you have not fulfilled the obligation. So Tzemer Pishtin works on any beged. So that's what he teaches you from Tzemer Pishtin, and therefore it's not really open to teach you a universal teaching of essay daichel loisesei. So that's why that first Tana need the teaching of essay daichel loisesei to be learned from a Mitzayra, that a Mitzayra should override the loisesei of loisa kipu. So now the Gemara asks the question, okay, that first Tana that used Roishai to teach you essay daichel loisesei, how would he know? Let's say the Mitzorah is a Kohen. How do we know? And the Kohen has a loisa say an essay. A Kohen is not allowed to take off his payas like every Jew. Plus, the Torah tells you kedoshim tiyu. A Kohen is supposed to be super holy. So therefore, how do you know that? How would he know that a Mitzorah should take a hair? Who's a Kohen should take a haircut? Because in that case, you're violating an essay and a loisa say. And the Gemara could ask, how do you know even Nazir? The question is, how does he know that the essay overrides a loisa say and an essay? So the answer is nafkele mizakonai. He has an extra word zakonai. Actually, if you remember the pasuk told you by Mitzorah two extra words, Roishoi and zakonai. He already told you cut off all your hair. Why does it say the beard? So we learn from here because it says by a coin. He should not cut off his payas. The Torah says another law by a coin, you shouldn't even cut off your payas. I might think a coin mitzayra should not violate and take off his payas because he also has a say of being a holy person. That from the word beard, the Torah tells you that he should take off his payas. So the Gemara asks, the first mandiyam, the second mandiyam, the second brisa number 2, use roishai for a nazir. That's a mitzayra, because that teaches you that the mitzayra should override essay and a lois essay. Leil of Zakanai, why didn't he learn it out from Zakanai? That we see that it's the Zakanai is teaching you that even a kohen mitzayra should take a haircut, so maybe a nazir mitzayra should take a haircut. So the Gemara says, let me ask you a question, an open question. Even if you said that Zakanai is talking about a kohen mitzayra, why the kaimalam ba'alma? We know that universally, not by mitzayra. We go to Amid Beis. The loyas essay v'doiches loysa save essay. We don't say an essay overrides a loysa essay and essay. We only have this position in all kala Torah kula is an essay should override only a loysa essay, one loysa essay, but not a loysa essay and an essay. So, but leilaf mekayim v'dachi. Why don't we learn out the fact that we see a mitzayra who is a kohen should take a haircut? So we see that essay could override a license of essay. So why don't we say that universally in Kol HaTorah Kula, essay should override a license of essay? So the answer is because Elami Kohen lo yalfinan. You can't learn it from a Kohen because that loisase is a weaker type of loisase. Mala Kohen shekein lav she'ena shaveh b'koil. That loisase only applies, it's not a universal lav, it only applies to a Kohen. It's not something that applies to every Jew. So therefore, in that case, since the lav is very weak, and the essay, so therefore we'll say the essay will override the essay and lois essay only specifically by Kayin, but not anywhere else in Kol HaTorah Kula. So that is a logical answer to that. So he's going to say, that's why I didn't want to learn from Zakanai for a Nazir, because a Nazir, I'm not going to learn Nazir, who's a Mitzayra, from a Kain that's a Mitzayra. Even though the Kainite teaches you that a Kain who's a Nazir, a Kain who's a Mitzayra should take a haircut, that doesn't mean a Nazir who's a Mitzayra should take a haircut. Because Shekain lav shein shava b'koil. Because a Nazir, because a Kohen is a lav that's not by everybody. So maybe over there he has a leniency. A Kohen has a leniency to take a haircut when he's a Mitzayra. But you wouldn't say that by a Nazir. With Nazir applies to every Jew, men, women. It applies to everybody. So therefore, maybe the essay of Mitzayra will not override the essay and the loisa say that of a Nazir, which is don't take a haircut. And grow your hair. So therefore, I need an extra pasuk of Roishei to teach you that a Nazir who's a Mitzayra should take a haircut. So now the Gemara asks just two more questions. When he's a mitzvah, man the maikim law lahai roisha benazir. Okay, let's go back to the person, to the second Tana, the second brisa, who uses roisha by nazir. That roisha teaches you that a mitzvah who is a nazir should take that haircut. Really, the Gemara is now assuming that the zakonoi technically would be learned from nazir, according to him. You don't even need zakonoi to teach you that a kohen who's a mitzvah should take a haircut. If a nazir who's a kohen, who's a mitzvah takes a haircut, certainly a kohen who is a mitzvah should take a haircut. So lama li zakonoi. So the question of the Gemara is, then what does he use zakonoi for? If Rosh is teaching you nazir should take a haircut as a mitzvah, certainly a kohen. The Mabayale Lekadanya, he teaches you, it actually teaches you this brisa. The fact is that the Kohen will teach you that a Kohen should take a haircut, but not to teach you that a Kohen should take a haircut. Because once we have this pasuk that tells you that the Mitzorah, who is a Kohen, should take a haircut, from there we know that how does the Mitzorah take his haircut? How does a Mitzorah take his haircut? Does he take it with scissors? No, he's supposed to use a razor blade. Because the whole Kohen has an issur to razor blade off his beard. A Kohen there's an issur to razor blade off his beard. Every person has an issur to razor blade off his beard. And if a mitzvah was only supposed to use a regular scissors, then he's not in violation. What's the problem with a Kohen cutting off his beard? Elamai, from here you learn that when the Torah says that a mitzvah is supposed to take off his hair, the Torah didn't want you to use scissors. The Torah wants you to use a razor blade. And that's what Zakana is. Zakana is the source, indirectly, how is a mitzvah supposed to take that haircut, not with regular scissors. He takes it with a super razor blade, and he becomes like a pumpkin. The Tanya we learned in the Bryces, Zakana my Talmud Laima. What do we need Zakana for by mitzvah? Because it says it says a kohen should not take off his razor blade, his hair. I would think a kohen who's a mitzvah should not razor blade his beard. And therefore, the Torah teaches us that a kohen who's a mitzvah should violate and take off his beard with that razor blade. How do you know that the issur of taking off the beard means a razor blade? Tanya, we learned to the Brisa, the Torah says, don't take off your beard, the corners of your beard, with a cutting instrument that cuts hair. Giluach means something that cuts hair. I might think that if you cut it off with scissors, you get the violation. Don't take it off in a destructive manner. And that means you're uprooting the hair. If it just says don't uproot the hair of your beard, destroying it, I thought if you use, like say, smoothing planes, like blades that normally saw down wood or smooth out wood, which is not a hair cutting instrument, I would think yechayev. You have to use instruments that are specifically used for cutting hair. What type of cutting instrument that actually destroys hair? That's the razor blade that you razor blade your beard. So it's also to razor blade a beard. Now, the Torah is telling you that a mitzvah who is a kohen should cut his beard off. So from that derivation, we learn that the way a mitzvah cuts off all the hair is by using that razor blade. So that's why it needs a kohen to teach you that a mitzvah uses a razor blade when he finally cuts his hair off at the end of his mitzvah. One last question. According to the Gemara's question is that if you're going to use roishoy to just teach you that every Jew is permitted to cut his hair, that was Brisa number 1, then why does the Torah have to tell you that zakonai to teach you that even a kohen who's a mitzvah should cut his hair off? The fact is, the Torah is telling a mitzvah, this is an open question, the Torah is telling a mitzvah, no matter who you are, cut your hair off. I don't care if you're a Nazir or if you're a Kohen, or a Jew, cut your hair off. Mashma lemitche lav gereda. The Torah is mashma that that it should override whether there's one lav, if you're a regular Jew. And mashma lemitche laisa sevasei. The Torah implies that it should override whether this roishai it belongs to a kohen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what type of person you're a Mitzayra. You are supposed to take your razor blade and razor blade all your head. Hilkach shakolhu v'yavayu and kohen yavayu shneim. So I should learn both of them from the open-ended statement of Roishai that any type of Mitzayra should be cutting his hair, even if he's a kohen who's a Mitzayra. So the Gemara says like this: the truth is, you're right, but the Torah, if the Torah would write one of them, I would not know another. If the Torah wrote kohen and nazir l'yaf, the Torah wrote a kohen who's a Mitzayra should cut his hair off, I would think that only a kohen could override his loisesei of Mitzayra, because Sheken Yesh, if it would just write Nazir, I'm sorry, then I wouldn't know Kohen. Sheken Yeshnei b'she'ela. A Nazir, you could actually undo the Naziris. If the Nazir goes to Bezdin and he says, I don't want to be a Nazir anymore, he could get released from that. So maybe in that, so Nazir has a very weaker lav. That's why Mitzayra would override Nazir. And if it would just write Kohen, Nazir Mekayin Le'yalav, I would not know a Nazir from a Kohen. If it just Torah wrote Kohen, I wouldn't know Nazir. Why? Because Kohen is Shekain Lav Shein Neshav Kol. The fact is, a Kohen's lav is not universal. It's only specifically by a Kohen. So only that type of Mitzayra should violate and cut his hair off. So that's why the Torah had to write Roisha Zakonai to tell you that if you're a Mitzayra or Nazir, if you're a Mitzayra Kohen, you should be cutting your hair off. But in all other areas of Torah, you don't learn essay, because it was, you could ask that question that we just asked. That the only time the Torah says an essay is was only by the loisasei of Kohen or the loisasei of Nazir, and each one has its own problem. Loisasei of Kohen has a problem that it's only by Kahanim. It's not Shavah B'Koil, and the loisasei by Nazir is a type of loisasei that you can get released from. So it's like a weak type of Nazir. But I wouldn't know essays doichel loisasei everywhere in the Torah. We have a very strong loisasei and a very strong essay. I wouldn't say the essay would override that. Okay, very cheshbon type of daf. Okay.